he shows me how to do shoes. I buy my first pair, and then immediately he scams me for $500 on 2 different deals. This dude actually ended up going to jail. And it's just so irrational to think that the people in your life that have gotten you to this point, that don't care about making money online, that don't know what it is, don't trust it, have never taken a risk in their life, are going to be the optimal people for you to use to change your life. You just need to do something. You just need to do something. Or you just have to rely on the people that are currently in your life who statistically have no idea what selling on Amazon is, don't care about it, don't think it works, and that just makes no sense, right? Dude, it looks so obvious when you talk to your like IRL friends about making money. It's like, dude, like, just do something. Just do something.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Side Hustle Experiment podcast. Today we have Flips4Miles on. He's been one of the OGs in this space. He was actually the first reseller I met, and I was the first reseller he met. So it's good to come full circle. This is probably like 5 years ago. So what's going on, man? Thanks for being here.
Yeah, no, love your guys' work and excited to talk on that. And that is crazy because like John and I literally met. It's almost 6 years ago. It was summer of 2019, pre-COVID, which is pretty cool, man. And as well, the whole story behind that too is awesome as well. But nah, excited to talk on this stuff. And like we were saying a little off camera, like I don't get to talk about not Amazon stuff that often. So I know with this episode, we're going to talk a lot about like the content side of things and growing beyond just Amazon and everything. And I literally could talk about that all day, but I don't get to often. So I'm excited to with you guys.
Yeah, I was pumped because I'm like, I think I only seen one podcast of you online where you didn't talk about Amazon. It was the Stick Talk one. I'm like,
those guys are awesome.
And that thing got like 200 views. So I was like, nobody even saw that. And that's like, everybody wants to see who's behind the camera. You know, I feel like what your personality is. So for anybody that doesn't know, I guess you can give them an intro. I would say everybody watching this probably knows you, but give a brief intro of like what you do and everything.
Yeah, man, for sure. So in the current day, basically, my main focus is on helping Amazon sellers start and grow, right? Which primarily comes from the mindset of that if I put out a lot of good free stuff, that people will want to use SellerAmp, our product research tool, and Boxem, our listing and inventory management tool, right? Beyond that, and then to kind of take it back to how I got into it, I've just always loved reselling and commerce and stuff like that, right? And so that starts back in very, very late 2010, actually, very late 2010, in that I got this Lego set for Christmas. I always really, really liked Legos, even like, I think I was like 12 or 13 then. So that was like relatively late for what most people kind of do with that, but loved basketball, loved Legos. And so I got this Lego set for Christmas. And it basically, I don't know why, I just couldn't get it together. I'm a decently sharp guy, and like there's instructions right there. And for whatever reason, it just was not going together. So I was like, all right, like, let me look this up on Google. Let me look this up on YouTube and see if anyone has been able to do it. And that night, literally, it's like 2 days after Christmas, I'm on Christmas break, and my whole mindset completely changed. And that like there was this big online Lego community. Interestingly enough, some of the big guys from back in the day actually still do it. I'll check on them like a couple times a year, see what they're up to. And like I probably learned saw that community the 27th, and I posted my first video the 28th. And like that was my little like secret life during late middle school and early high school, was the online Lego community. And then in like 2014, 2015, that was when I started like taking high school basketball really serious. And so a big component of that is what shoes you wear, right? And I'm like, how the hell are these guys affording these shoes? And one of my friends had bred Jordan 1s, and I was like, dude, like, how are you able to do that? And interestingly enough, he was actually from the Lego world, but it was still kind of the same culture in respect to like both communities, based like my high school basketball world and then like the Lego world, right? And he's like, dude, I'm actually reselling shoes to be able to do it, right? And so he puts me on how to do it. And I've been trading Legos with people for a couple years. So my net worth's like $500, $1,000. Cause like there's some like little Lego things that'll be like there's serious money to be made with. And I love trading with people. I love doing commerce. I was mailing checks to people and everything in like 2011. My parents like, you sure you want to send $35 to this guy? And I'm like, yeah, trust me. Right. And shit was working. I was selling stuff. And as well, I'm building like kind of like a personal brand in the Lego space. So people trust me. They're shipping first to me, right? And then I get shipped. So I'm scam proof now as well. And so he shows me how to do shoes. I buy my first pair, and then immediately he scams me for $500 on 2 different deals, which was completely my fault. Completely my fault. This dude actually ended up going to jail and everything. Yeah, he ended up going to jail, I think, for selling drugs in New York. But that's a story for a different day. I don't really know much about that, but yeah. So he basically scams me immediately, And I'm like, damn, like, but for whatever reason, I just kept doing it. And that was like 2014. And just basically ended up focusing a little bit more on shoes, less on Legos kind of each year. But the Lego stuff introduced me to the way that the internet can be used to find the exact type of person you want to hang out with that just didn't exist in my high school, right? No one, I didn't really talk about the Lego stuff or anything like that, but it taught me that it was second nature, and there's like the most reasonable thing in the world and the most rational thing to do to like, okay, you have this tool, you have this phone, and everyone's on it, and you don't really have those people in real life, right? But you can find them online. And that taught me a lot about what I talk about for like Amazon sellers these days, right? And so pretty much every year got a little bit more serious about selling shoes, a little bit less serious about Lego. Still like doing it, but I like making money and having fun too, instead of just having fun on the Lego side of things. And basically, so just getting going with that. And then in 2017, right before I was going to go to college, my mom was like, all right, so you're going to get rid of all the shoes? And I was like, no, I'm going to bring them with me. And of course, luckily, I had this really cool roommate that was totally cool with like my side of the room being like filled with shoes and everything. And I think it's so cool how like stuff just kind of comes together, right? And that I had these two really good friends, and we weren't allowed to have cars on campus, but they had when they parked off campus, and that was the plug to go to the post office every day, right? And the big shift with that was that was when I stopped selling shoes on Facebook and started selling shoes on StockX and Goat, which is similar to Amazon, and that there's very little, if any, customer communication and authentication, right? And that with StockX, you ship it to the warehouse, they authenticate it, right? And so those were kind of the two convergences that made it a lot easier. And then freshman year goes by, I get a lot more serious about shoes and start selling them every day, probably like $1,000 profit month in like 2018. And then those two kids transfer, right? So now I'm a little bit more lonely, but I have my whip now, right? So now I have more freedom. I can drive to the outlets, right? And so as I'm putting more time into that and less time into going out, less time into friends and everything, that's when the Facebook algorithms start to get really good. They start serving me different content. I'm like, okay, who's this guy living in his canoe? You can sell books on Amazon. I thought the only way to make money was selling shoes on StockX. Okay, you can sell on Amazon. You can sell all different types of stuff. Wow, there must be more money in that, right? And then I start going to like Chaz from Side Hustle Pros. I think his name's Side Hustle Experiment now. It is. I start going to his live streams while I'm studying. He's putting me on game. Damn, there's people making money on eBay. Damn, there's people making money selling on Amazon. There's people that aren't just 16-year-old money-hungry kids with rich parents. That was the only kids I was selling shoes with, right? It started to really expand my mind that people were doing this full time that didn't like look like drug dealers in the shoe world. They didn't have to go to conventions all the time, right? People are thrifting, right? And so that like really started to introduce me to stuff. And I started reading books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, all the foundational stuff everyone should totally read, 4-Hour Work Week and everything. And then basically kept selling shoes that whole year, 2018, 2019. That was my sophomore year. And then had like a 5K profit month in December of 2018. That was definitely like the most important money I had ever made. And start to like kind of give my parents a little jab here and there, like if I can resell full time. And they're like, okay, but you need something else for health insurance, right? And I'm like, yes, in the back of my mind, of course not, right? And, and basically, so that I like really take that whole year, especially the first half of the year in 2018, and learn a ton about like the reselling world and about selling on eBay and about thrifting and everything. And I also found Gary Vee at that point too, because Reezy would always talk about Gary Vee and how Reezy's what got him started making videos. And I'm like, all right, this whole time I haven't really had my own page. A lot of my friends have their own page. All these Amazon guys are talking about how important it is to post content and to exist and to talk about what you're doing. Gary Vee's talking about it too. Okay, I got to do that for myself. I used to do it with Legos. I really like doing it for Legos. So that's when Flips4Miles was born in January of 2019. And then I keep selling shoes, but I'm documenting hardcore. So like people are coming to me about this stuff now, which was weird. It really shouldn't be that way. Like I was like a 19-year-old who knew nothing, or 20-year-old who knew nothing about this stuff. But as we all know, nobody posts stuff online. So by default, if you have any talent with it, which just comes from pattern recognition, what is Reezy Resells doing that works? He's posting a picture of every shipment. I should do that. What's Steve Rakin talking about? He's talking about how you can do affiliate stuff. I don't know what that is, link or whatever, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll get that link, right? I'm making $6 a month, right? Caleb Ross like hitting me back in the DMs. It's beautiful right there, right? And everything. And then I have this unpaid internship lined up because I knew I wanted to graduate early. So I had this unpaid internship where I was going to live pretty much by myself, or like really looking back, I have no idea why I did it, but I had to do it and I didn't feel like living at home for it. And I knew I was going to graduate early. So I had to do the internship after sophomore year compared to after junior year because I wanted to be able to make money sooner, basically. And so I do that and then just get pretty bored living by yourself at age 20 in like a small college town. And I'm like, all right, man, let me give this selling on Amazon thing a try. These boys are talking about selling books. I don't know if ungating's a thing. Everyone's saying it's not. Let me start going to thrift stores. And then I get a DM from one side hustle experiment, the man himself. And he says, yo, I think that's the thrift store I go to. Do you live in Central PA? And I'm like, I do. All right, cool, right? And so we get together. We have we had like Red Robin or something like that. We started scanning. And that was a big validation moment. It's like, damn, like people are doing this. Like people are really succeeding with it. John's like showing me his plans for the warehouse, his plans to quit his 9 to 5. And I remember saying, I'm pretty sure this might be word for word, John. I was like, what do you do full time? And you're like, I'm a copywriter. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And you're like, it sucks. I'm pretty sure that might be word for word. It was something like that.
It was.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was word for word. Right. And so that was cool to connect with John and everything. And then that like really started out. That was when I was really bored. So I started going really hard on content. And then the cool thing about that is that when you're vulnerable about being a beginner at something, people flock to help you. They're lonely. They don't have those people to talk to about it in real life. We all don't either. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here making content like this because we wouldn't need to find like-minded people, right? And everything. And so yeah, basically, and then got to that point, and then that was like a big validation moment. I was doing the 2,000 book challenge in August of 2019, and then basically COVID hit, stopped doing Amazon for a little while just because you couldn't get inventory for books. There wasn't really a way to with thrifting and stuff like that. And then late 2020, I'm still in the mix though. I'm still posting on Instagram. People are kind of keeping me in the loop about stuff. People are going crazy with toys and pools. Absolute goated era of reselling. We all pray for it to come back at some point. Legendary time, right? That was when so many people got freed, right? And so then like I'm in the mix. People are tapping me in on stuff. I meet Cody does Amazon. You guys recently had on, right? John and I are talking every now and again. John quits his job, which was lit. I remember that as well. And then people start to talk about that you can sell anything on Amazon. I haven't really paid much attention to Amazon as much, but I'm like, all right, dude, I'll give it a try. Like, let me submit this eBay invoice. Let's see if this thing actually works, right? And then it, boom, does. I list some of my old shoe inventory, starts pumping. Do the only thing I know how to do well in the world that's ever worked well for me, which is talk about it online. I start to get DMs from more people. They're like, dude, I got that unlocked too. I got that on Gated too, right? You want to get on Zoom? Sure, right? And then kind of just the rest was history with all in arbitrage. And then in the same way that content was able to like find me my people in respect to like getting going with selling Amazon, it's also been a great tool. Like we do SellerAmp now, eventually Boxem with that too. And I think it's like a main focus in terms of helping people get into making money online and change your life is the component of the idea that the people in your life determine the results you get. And it's just so irrational to think that the people in your life that have gotten you to this point that don't care about making money online, that don't know what it is, don't trust it, have never taken a risk in their life, are going to be the optimal people for you to use to change your life. And it doesn't cost any money, but using the tools on the internet are such a great way to go ahead and do that. And so I know we're going to talk about that, but not to kind of just yabber on about my story basically, but that's kind of like bringing it up to speed.
Dude, that's so funny you bring that up because I remember that dinner like vividly. And I was like, what are you doing right now? And you're like, oh, I work for, I think you're doing like financial planning. I'm an intern.
Yep.
You're like, it's boring as shit. Like I basically just play on my phone the whole time. I do my work in an hour. And then I think that you kind of look to me, you're like, how do you like your 9 to 5? Because you were like on the fence whether or not you're going to go all in a reselling for a job. And then you're like, what do you do? I was like, I'm a copywriter. You're like, do you like the 9 to 5? I was like, it sucks. And so and then you were just like, you kind of like, I felt like in a way, like looking at me, be like, should I get one or not? I was like, nah, it fucking sucks, dude. Like, don't do that. So that's really funny that you brought that up.
Yeah, I'm curious. Do you like throughout this whole journey? I feel like you're a little bit like one step ahead of the curve with like literally almost everything you've done since because I got on social media when you started growing the same time. And I just remember your followers, all the stuff going up, and you were just brute forcing it. But do you like correlate all your success to this stuff with the brute force, or like high IQ and knowing this stuff? Because obviously you're like a very smart guy. Like when I hear you break this stuff down, what do you think is more of it? Your hard work or your, intuition to see this stuff coming?
Ooh, so I would kind of say that I'm very consistent, or at least do my best to be, but it's I would say it's actually a lack of like intuition and trusting other people's and looking at where the market's going based on the stuff. And that like for example, on like the software side of things, so like Caleb Roth like blew my mind when he told me how much money he made in 2021. I met him for the first time. And then like seeing Amazon Lit too doing crazy numbers as well. I was like, all right, like there's something here. Maybe I shouldn't just do online arbitrage. Maybe I should do wholesale. Maybe I should do software in the future, or something like that, or whatever, right? And everything. So yeah, I'd say more so just like pattern recognition, honestly. And that like I always like want to look at what other people are doing and everything. I think it's like awesome and everything to see that and all that. And then yeah, I'd say primarily just pattern recognition around stuff. It's like, okay, like Gary Vee talks about this. Like I really, really trust Gary Vee. Some of the other stuff he put me on game with were good. Let me like, listen to him more and everything. And then just I never really had like super good in real life friends, and that was definitely partially my fault too. Like, you know what I mean? Like I definitely could have invested more time in that, but I've always just kind of trusted like the internet side of things so much. Like I was getting on Zoom or Skype calls with people in 2011, right? And they're like, I've been around the block in respect to like finding, like-minded people online and everything, and it's just served really well. And I think if you compare that to like most people, they've only ever had convenience-based relationships, right? Class, work, nothing wrong with that whatsoever, but that limits you from an upside perspective when now these digital tools can connect you with anyone you want to meet for no money. I didn't pay John a dime, and he reached out to me, and he was years ahead of me with this stuff, right? And so it was like, but to him, I was like probably the first person he had met, like you were saying, right? And so it was like hella, validating and everything to see that and all that. So I'd say mainly pattern recognition, honestly, with that.
Yeah, you seem like you haven't had too many like self-belief problems. Like I feel like the whole reason like people don't post content, people don't want to do this stuff is because they have a bit of like I'm a fraud or I don't know enough or whatever. Did you just never really have that issue, or was it because you didn't have the IRL people? You're just like I don't even care. Like I'm just gonna post whatever, and whatever's gonna happen. Like how did you get through all those like self-belief and like scared problems people have?
Yeah, so I think it was having just barely enough self-belief to start and then enough intelligence to keep going once you get feedback. Right. And then like, like I had a good time in college freshman year. Those two guys leaving definitely was annoying. But then like it was like perfect because I just caught the momentum with the shoe stuff and like being connected in the shoe space. There was always something going on, always something to work on. So that like was a really good like positive reinforcement that was the right path and everything too. And then yeah, just like you see feedback on stuff like I just had no business getting the help that I got for free, but I was the only person giving myself a chance to. John was one of the only people giving himself a chance to. So by default, we got tons of relationship equity based on it, if that makes sense.
Yep. Man, there's definitely something about the social isolation paired with the internet connectivity that like primes people. Cause I started, I literally almost had the same origin story of you. Basketball started with a Jordan 1, same thing. It's so weird. But then 2020 came around. It's like we were forced to be isolated, but then you're not isolated because you can just connect on the internet. And then all that stuff happens when, dude, if I would have still been at college partying, no way I would have been able to push myself for that. Cause I'm just like too in the weeds with other stuff. So I think that maybe it's like a bit of luck on our end that we were pushed in these scenarios like that, but it does just prime you for success, I think, in the future.
Yeah, you play the cards you're dealt with. You know what I mean? You play the cards you're dealt with. And that it's so easy for someone in our position back in the day, being 20 now, to be like, oh, I'm super young, I don't have much experience. But at the same time, I would argue with that person, okay, you grew up with the internet. You have no excuse. You're brand new. You have no excuse. You're not educating people. You shouldn't be. You have nothing to educate them on, but you can document. You can scroll back to 2019 on my page and see me talking like this about Instagram Live tonight. Like you can see that. You can see that exists and everything. And then on the same front, right? Some older folks will be like, oh, I'm old. First of all, we never want to use negative labels about ourselves. I'm not saying old's a bad thing, but people, when they justify their lack of action around stuff, that is a negative connotation they give, right? Okay. There's less people that are older that are posting online, so therefore you have less competition. I can see the best in any situation, right? And I know that because I get hit with these bullets all day you know what I'm saying, right? In terms of this thumbnail thing. But yeah, no, for sure. That's a great point about COVID and everything too. And that, yeah, you play the cards you dealt. You play the cards you dealt. You know what I mean? You play them, the best you can. And then over time, like, it's just like irrational to think you wouldn't get better at something the more you do it. And it's just things kind of come together over time if you consistently give yourself a chance to get lucky and build momentum.
Yep, 100%. What you got, John?
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting. I feel one thing that really strikes me about you and kind of like our relationship, and you really open it up for me, is like when initially I DM'd you, I was basically like, man, this fucker is in my thrift store. I'm sitting here at lunch at the 9 to 5. Like, I'm so jealous of him being out there. Like, I need to get to know him or whatever. And you were kind of the first person to really open my eyes to be like, oh, wow, like we could do this together. And the first thing we went to all the thrift stores, we scanned all the books, like we split it. And we're just like in our head, it was like, oh, wow, it's so much quicker to do this together, split it. And then you showed me how to do Plato's Closet because I showed you how to scan books. And it was like this back and forth. You want to talk about how like almost, I would say you're very generous with like information and kind of very positive that there's like enough for everyone. So for the people out there that are kind of like, oh, we did have someone on who just Pete actually, and we talked a little bit about like sometimes you have to gatekeep a little in networking, but you want to kind of go into like why at first maybe reciprocity is the way to go.
Yeah, so that is so true in respect to like what Pete was talking about, and that like I just have to kind of give general advice because like most people, like it's so hard for them to pick up the camera with it. It's the heaviest thing in the world, right? And everything. But yeah, no, I like, so basically selfishly, the more I put out, the more I reverse engineer what people are looking for, the more comes back to me. So that's a very selfish thing. I want to make that very clear, right? Honestly, right? But luckily, its incentives are aligned, right? With that and everything. And then yeah, I kind of think like because I was really active from day one, I always had the cream of the crop in that like I never had to get on calls with anonymous people and everything, right? And that like most new, if we're talking purely on the Amazon side of things, most new Amazon sellers have limited themselves so much from like just putting enough stuff out there that they have to like take anyone that comes to them about stuff, and naturally it's significantly less. But like, a guy like Pete was super active from day one. It was never a problem for him to, find cool people. And it's kind of the same way for me. It seems like kind of same thing with you guys too and everything, right? And that like, joining different groups and everything, maybe you pay a little bit of money, maybe you don't, right? And everything. But yeah, no, that's so true. And that like, in general, right? If you take a look at like the internet as a whole, like the influencers who have been around the longest, and I don't even like the term influencer, but like they've done the most stuff, they've done it for the longest, and they've innovated and pivoted and hopped around and everything. And then on the point of like the local market of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania's booksellers is a very, very small market, right? A lot of people will start out doing retail arbitrage, and the people in their life, the voices in their life thus far will be like, you're going to go do that for the next 30 years, completely and utterly avoiding the obvious thing that you're going to innovate over time. You're going to grow. You're going to find bigger opportunities. You're going to get better connected. You're going to get more money, right? And everything. So I think you and I both had that positive foresight around the idea that like, okay, we're not going to be thrifting forever, right? And you shouldn't be, right? And you shouldn't be. I would say the same thing about retail arbitrage. I'd say the same thing about retail arbitrage or online arbitrage, right? And everything. You're not an Amazon seller. You're an entrepreneur. You're not a bookseller. You're an entrepreneur, right? You're not an RA seller. You're an entrepreneur, right? And everything. So yeah, like because when did you get the warehouse, John? It was 2019, right?
Yeah, as soon as I got the keys to the big warehouse, restock limits hit like 2 weeks later.
Oh, yes.
That's exactly when it happened. And I do think you bring up a really good point, like just evolving with the business, because I kind of thought the same thing. It's like, well, like I'm not going to be scanning books in thrift stores forever, right? It's just to kind of like figure this out. Is this validating? Like if you would have told me when we met, like I'd have a YouTube channel and a podcast with Drew, I'd be like, there's no way, right? But like, and how me and Drew met are just really unique because like you had me on Buy Box Bandits. He listened to the episode, did what I said in Keeper Product Finder, and changed kind of his business. And I saw him post on Twitter that he was getting out of apparel and shoes. And I was like, ooh, like I kind of want to learn a little bit about what he's talking about. And when I DM'd him, I was kind of afraid to DM him. And then when I DM'd him, he's like, oh man, like I was kind of afraid to DM you because you were on like Buy Box Band. It was just this weird thing. And then it's like, now we do this. And it's just really funny how it came full circle.
Yeah, I kind of, further elaborate on that too. Like, I'd assume neither of you guys paid each other any money.
If you're still listening to the podcast at this point, you are into it and a fan, and we really appreciate that. If you could do us a solid and like, subscribe, and do all that stuff, it really helps the podcast grow. And secondly, if you could tag us on Instagram, just take a picture of what part you are at the podcast. If you like it, tell us what you think about it. Tag me at Side Hustle Experiment, and I will definitely share it. Now let's get back to the podcast.
No.
That's the beautiful thing, right? Is that people think, that like everything's like, no, not at all, right? You guys didn't pay each other any money, right? John and we've never paid each other any money, and everything. And it's beautiful, right? But the key is that when I can't remember which one of you guys slid in the DMs first, whichever one, right? The immediate thing that happened is the profile click and the human assessment of what can this person add to my life, right? Unfortunately, that's the way it works, right? So many people listening to this have no presence. They have no digital business card. So they get a worse response. And that compounded over the long term makes all the difference in that, every now and again on Twitter, on IG, pretty frequently, right? There's like a new 19-year-old male who pops up and he's consistently putting himself out there every single day. And opportunity just starts finding him left and right. I was that guy back in the day. Drew was that guy back in the day. Unlimited examples of people that are like that just because they gave themselves the chance to get it, right? And everything. And so I think, John had added value through that podcast. Drew had consumed it, right? But then Drew so you guys had like literally the best of both worlds with it and everything, right? And like that, initial first impressions and everything, like it really adds up. And that John wasn't thinking about, okay, if I give this game on this podcast, right? Someone's going to DM me and we're going to get rich together. We're going to have a podcast together in the future. Of course not. But as a human being adding value to the world, that's like the only option you have that tends to lead to optimal results over the long term and everything, right? And then literally I'll be the first one to say, John's one of the best 5 Ox Bandits guests we've had. I think it's been like a year or so, so we got to do it one again soon. But you've been on like 3 times or whatever. And like, I'll specifically remember the gift card tip you gave about Target, I think probably 2 years ago, right? And then the really good inspiration on the 2021 one we did too, right? And everything. And now having been in the game a couple years, each of us, right? You start to see that there's very few long-term players, but all the big opportunities consistently by default float up to the long-term players that have been around for a while, typically.
I have top 10 most viewed episode on Bob Box Bandits. Do you know that?
Oh, no, I don't even know why I didn't even remember bringing that. Yeah, we had a fire Bob Box Bandits. I want to say
I've only been on there once, but I remember looking. I check the views periodically. I'm like, how did I have such a viewed episode? When you guys have on there, you guys had the biggest people on there. I'm like, so weird about you guys had the first podcast with me, so I think it was like the first time you show your face when you're somebody on Twitter and stuff, it's just like huge. But that just made me think about that. But anyways, I was going to ask, how did you know this social? You said you were slow talking on the live stream and stuff. Now you're basically just doing 2 podcasts in one here at an hour. You talk fast, you get to the point, and then your Instagram. I remember, I don't know how it is now. I'm not on there much, but you were like systematically, okay, here's my story post every single day. Like, this is what I'm trying to accomplish with this. I'll have these posts. Did you have a coach with any of this stuff, or did you just learn this is how I'm entertaining? This is like, how did you figure all that stuff out?
Yeah, so it's partially looking at what other people are doing, like being connected enough in the game that like if something's going well for something, I'll either see it on my own or like I'll be tapped into it. It's no different than like a loop in the Amazon world, right? And that like, all these different things over the years, like pools, like chlorine was jumping. Like I was getting plugged into chlorine like the second, like I remember getting an all caps text message about chlorine. It's like, all right, I'm going over to Home Depot right now. Right. And everything. But yeah, so definitely have paid for help, especially at the beginning with a lot of stuff. Definitely Amazon too, right? Wholesale stuff for sure. Never really ended up going too hard into wholesale, but I know it'd work if I did it these days and everything. But yeah, for sure, man, definitely. So combination of paying for help and relentless, just enjoyment of it, man, honestly, right? I always loved, like, for example, I had the best time growing my high school basketball team's Twitter page, right? I'm tagging like all the Philly Inquirer. I'm getting retweets left and right. Like I took that thing to like 800 followers in a year. We're 8 years later, and it's at like 1,500, right? Like, dude, I was grinding on that thing back in the day, right? Like trying to get our guys recruited for college and everything, like all types of stuff like that. So like very blessed to have a lot of personal enjoyment in it too. So it doesn't feel like
Do you think you became like an expert in the content thing, or do you think that you produce enough volume to where it's good? Because I feel like you don't have all these, you don't, how many viral moments? I mean, you probably don't have a ton of viral stuff, right? You just have like every single day, there's so much content that you can't not see it, right?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, prime. I think my biggest YouTube shorts at like 600K, biggest Instagram reels at like 300K, and then maybe one YouTube video over 100K for a long form, but not much, right? Not much. But who else has been doing it for 5 years? You know,
Yeah.
very few. Like, you know, like you guys been doing it for 5 years in terms of a lot of stuff, and no wonder it's worked. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I did not know those are not very high for the amount of followers you have, right?
Right? Oh no,
Yeah.
not at all. Exactly. Yeah, no, not at all. Yeah.
And that's probably, you probably have a very targeted audience as well, which leads to success in all these other things.
Sure,
So,
yeah. And on that topic too, man, like a lot of Amazon sellers specifically, like my idea of like the formula for success as an online arbitrage seller to make your first 6 figures profit, it's like 5 or 10 websites that you know the unique way to make them good, whether that's a coupon that's on 24/7, whether that's their sale that hits each holiday. Decent amount of capital, obviously you need that too. Being willing to do merchant fulfilled, and then 2 or 3 friends you rock with heavy. That's all you need. Those are the commonalities, right? And you don't need to have a big page like I do, like you guys do. You don't need to post often. You just need to do something. You just need to do something. Or you just have to rely on the people that are currently in your life who statistically have no idea what selling on Amazon is, don't care about it, don't think it works, and that just makes no sense, right? So like a great example of like the perfect Instagram page is like, or the perfect page is like 0-day handling time, right? Or like Drew's Twitter, for example, where you show up every now and again, especially back in the day, showcasing wins. You might toss a reply on someone here and there. That's all you got to do, but it's just like something every day. And I'm thinking that like changes people's life like crazy. Like every single guest you guys have on, really what they did was they did it for a year or two minimum, and they have a couple of people they like that they do, if we're being completely honest, right?
Yep.
Typically, right? Every Buy Box Bandits guest is like, I love like 1,000 Asins. He's great. He'll come on like once a year, spit some game, and like his answers to everything come down to like, just like got a couple of dudes I like and we buy items that are profitable. And it's like, absolutely, like that's the game. You just got to optimize to doing the stuff that gets that, right? And I think the major component that's missing for a lot of people is typically time in the game and people in their life, right?
do you think it's got more difficult though for some of these people to get out there with how much saturation there is with content? Not that it's like saturated, but obviously, like, dude, the amount of people posted on Twitter was like me, you, and like 40 other people. Do you think it's probably more difficult now for people? They shoot a tweet off in the ether, they might get 7 views when we were probably getting like 100 just by nature of no one was talking about the stuff. How do people combat that of like, no one's even replying to this stuff for a long time?
Yeah, and that's very real too. But then there's the counter argument is like more people consuming it too as well.
Sure.
And everything. See, you do what you got. You know what I mean, and everything. And that like I completely agree with that. But like say we compare 2022 to 2025, like new people coming onto the scene and like really like being about and everything. It's probably less now. You know what I mean? So like
high level,
yeah, right. You know what I mean? And no one can compete with you. No one can compete with you. There's only one Drew FBA. There's only one side hustle experiment, right? No one has the unique experiences you have, right? Like I've made there's people I've met on Twitter that like we talk about basketball. I haven't talked to them about business in years, right? We talk about basketball and stuff and everything. But I know if selfishly, right? Like if there ever did something come up, like I can get an answer from you. You got a guy for things, right? And that's what it really comes down to, is like having a guy for stuff, I would say. And having that as a goal and a mindset in it. But yeah, no, I'd say definitely, theoretically, definitely more competition, but consumption, and then no consumption growing with that, but then no one can compete with you, right? There's only one John from Central PA who didn't like his job as a copywriter, who spent a couple years selling bulk books, who had a warehouse, didn't like it, started doing online arbitrage like that. Like there's only one of those unique experiences and everything. And that's your superpower is displaying and showing that,
Yeah, 100%. Especially today, like you posting the generic stuff, like every Amazon thing's been said. So like you're going to repost it. You're not going to get more views than you are, so they have to loop something in that's unique, or no one's going to even care about your stuff. But that's a hard part, because people I think they have a difficult time finding what's unique about them. I mean, shit, I do. So there's a little bit
but they naturally, right? But it's just lack of action that displays that. Yeah, I mean, lack of action that displays that. And they're like, dude, like I am like the most common demographic in America, right? In terms like, okay, went to college, went to good private school, whatever, right? Like, and everything, or something like that, or not even demographic, but like there's a lot of people like me,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I think, but there was no one that loves basketball and liked Legos and loved making videos about Legos back in the day. It's your unique experiences build your capabilities, right? Or lack thereof, right?
Yep.
And I think so. Yeah, that's the last thing I would be worrying about if I were someone listening to this. It's like, okay, like I've been listening to these guys for years, right? Like the 5 people I talk to in life the most are my 2 high school best friends, a couple people at work. They don't really got much going on, right? Therefore, you have a couple choices, right? You can find the people in your geographic area that are interested in online business, which is shockingly low, sadly low, honestly, right? Or you can use the internet, right? And to use the internet's the one that costs no money. You don't even have to leave the crib. You got to get over your limiting beliefs around feeling bad, putting yourself on camera, which is not that scary. Not scary. 80 years ago, boys, we would have been in the trench in World War II together. That sounds pretty bad. That sounds pretty bad. You know what I mean? Like thank God we got the stuff we do. You make money, connect, and everything, and it's a lot of fun.
Yep. What else you got, John?
Yeah, what are some things you've had to overcome? I mean, I feel like sometimes people might see your story and it just seems like up, 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 up. But like, what are some challenges you've had to overcome, whether in content or just in your Amazon business?
Oh yeah, I mean, so like, dude, for a while, like, I consider like used books and OA like such different things, but like, dude, like COVID hitting right when like my 6th month of selling Amazon, that sucked. In hindsight, that actually was the best time to have something like that happen and turn up with it and everything. And then just like, every day is a constant battle of like, do I actually want to do this and everything? And it's whatever you're doing, you're dealing with that and everything. And so I just like jam my brain full of like positive information of like watching all the content, the people I want to be like, doing my best to embody in them, reverse engineer. Like if I want to be like this person, how does this person act? And that person being the ideal future version of myself and everything. Right. So like, that, and then, just in general, right. Like I was pretty lucky to have come from a sales tax free state. That was lit. That helped a lot, and everything too, which was super cool as Pennsylvania stand up, with that. And then, there were a lot of stuff in the early days with shoes where like there were so many reasons to quit with that, like getting scammed and then like people not really believing it and everything. But dude, honestly, like the way I think about it is if you just consistently like load yourself up with responsibility, you just get better and you become more equipped to handle different things. And then like my days these days, a couple years ago, I'd have been like, dude, no shot you'd want to be doing that. You know what I mean? And everything. But like, your capabilities grow and your hourly rate of output work-wise grows, and you see how you might be able to help other people financially and stuff too, and everything. You know what I mean? And like, my parents are teachers and everything. So yeah, I don't know. I don't really see too many things as like obstacles. I see like my like self-belief and like lack of action being the potential main cause of that, right? But at the same time, now I'm multiple years into building with one industry, as are you guys. Opportunities popping up left and right. You see opportunity everywhere. You can't unsee the stuff you've seen, right? You can't unsee the way certain people have, grown over different years. I definitely can't. I definitely can't, right? And everything. And that's like a huge, huge blessing. And that's why, dude, it looks so obvious when you talk to your like IRL friends about making money. It's like, dude, like just do something, right? But you can't unsee stuff, and they haven't seen stuff. You know what I mean? And everything. So like, yeah, I think a lot about that, about like limiting beliefs and everything. And just like really like try to like, can't think of the correct word, but like just jam positive information into my brain about that stuff.
I think it's so funny you just said that because I was literally talking to Drew before you came on, and I was talking to someone, and they're like, I kind of want to start a side hustle or whatever via text. I'm like, oh, you could do this, you could do that, you could do this, you could do Amazon, you could do influence, you could do TikTok, all this stuff, and then like kind of help them whittle it down what they wanted to do. I was like, so are you gonna start like today? Like, what are you gonna do? They're like, I'm gonna look into it.
Oh,
Damn, like,
go to die.
like, oh, why? Like,
So
shit,
many
like.
have gone to die over.
And there's nothing else I could have done because I sold it hard. I'm like, I'm here to help you. Like, they could ask me any questions. And then it's just like, damn. And like, that's really all it took because like, if they're just like, hey, I made my first TikTok video. It didn't go well. I'd be like, well, no shit. But I'd be like, yo, like, here's what else you could do. Like, I'd be willing to help. But if they're like, oh, I'll look into it. I'm sure you get like plenty of DMs. I get like 10 DMs every day. Like, is this still a good opportunity? It's like, oh, bro, like,
Yeah, business
please stop.
don't fail. Business models don't fail. People fail. Business models don't succeed. People succeed. Thank God for that. Thank God for that, right? That, you drive, like, as a human being in America, you can walk outside in any relatively like populated area and you can see $1 million businesses all over the place. All over the place. And that should inspire the hell out of you, right? Because that guy's no different than you. That gal's no different than you. They just did something for a while. And at the start, when you're new to something, you're competing against the people who have been in it for a while and the people who are newer, right? But over time, you're knocking down these barriers. Let's say like Amazon, for example, right? To even get sales, right? You got to have an account open, right? You probably have to have some product research software, right? You have to have invested some money, right? And you need the shipping supplies, right? That's like 4 things you got to do that, like, some people just won't do, and that's fine, right? And then you got to learn how to make a shipment if you want to do FBA, right? And you got to learn how to put the labels on and everything. But to make your 10th shipment, you actually don't have to do that much. You only have to do one component, which could be sporadic on a day-to-day basis, which would be product research, right? Now, to keep going with that, right? It's March 11th, right? We just got out of the 2 hardest months of the year for product research. Coming up this week, St. Patrick's Day. Next month, Easter. Month after that, Mother's Day, Memorial Day. Month after that, Father's Day. Month after that, 4th of July. July Prime Day, right? There's all these bowl cases coming up of like how things get easier. And there's so many positive ways to look at stuff and everything. I think it's just like really, really important to hammer yourself with good information about that. And then take those initial couple first steps and find a couple people working on it as well. Because I, as someone who has has done this a couple times, right? Like, I was starving for people to talk to about this stuff when I was starved for it. You guys probably the same way, right? But you actually took the steps that would make it unreasonable for you to fail finding those people, right? And they're like, let's say, we're all talking about here about how important it is to build relationships, have friends in the space, right? What would someone do that wanted to be the most lonely Amazon seller in the world? If my goal was to be the most lonely Amazon seller in the world, I would never post online. I would never show my face if I did. I would never follow anyone if I had an account. I would never reply to anyone. I would never document my journey. I would never show everyone the mistakes that I made that might help them avoid a mistake, right? I would never document my wins, right? I would only ever keep to myself. I would think, why would I want to create competition? Now, the key here is that almost everyone listening to this is behaving exactly like someone who would want to be the most lonely Amazon seller in the world, right? And that's not either a good or bad thing, but most likely you don't want to be that person, right? And things so like, and it's like, okay, do the opposite of that. And now it's like good stuff starts to come up in your life. You want to give yourself that upside,
Yeah, it's an interesting reframe of that. Instead of looking at the stuff that you would want to do to become this, you're looking at, well, what am I doing now that is this? That's interesting. I've never even really thought of things like that.
Yep. But when you think about it like that, like that's been really helpful for me. Really, really helpful for me. And it's like, damn, man, it's like, okay, like if I wanted to, start the worst, TikTok shop business in the world, right? I would do it for a day. I would only ever watch YouTube videos. I would never meet anyone that was doing it too. Definitely not. Right. And I would expect it to work the first week. Right.
That's such an interesting way to look at things. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that before. That's good.
That is absolutely not my, I don't even know who I got it from, but like that is the least original idea I've ever heard. Right. I got completely regurgitation on that, but it's cool, man. You think about it that way. But like you think about that, it's like, okay, most Amazon sellers don't want to be that, but almost all of them are behaving similar to that. And now let's like keep going on with that. Okay. So you're too old. So you're not technical, right? These are choices. These are the old part, not, but considering yourself old and considering yourself right,
like Brian Johnson.
Yeah. Right. Right. And everything. But like the key, the negative labels on yourself as a human being is just toxic, man. Like I'm not technical. Okay. You're an adult human being, right? Be technical, make that choice, make that improvement to yourself, make that character development, right? And everything like, I'm not good on the computer. Why not? Why can't you be? Right. And then it's like, right. But you can, like, we're human beings, we're malleable, right? You don't got to be the same guy you were yesterday. Right. And things, it's beautiful. Right. And then the cool thing is like, all the winners hear this act on it. That's the beautiful thing. Right. In that, like, like you get what you deserve over time. You get what you deserve over time.
It's funny you say that because I'm in a group and they talk about like TikTok shop, how to grow that and stuff like that. And he uses that exact analogy, one of the head coaches. And they're like, oh, I've been making content for like 2 weeks or whatever. And like, it's just not popping off or whatever. And he's like, have you ever played like basketball or a
Oh
sport?
man, that's
And he's
awesome.
like, do you think you'd be ready to play competitively if you've never done it before in 2 weeks? And when you put it that way, you're like, oh, like definitely not. And it's the same exact thing. It's just like, hell no, I wouldn't even know how to like shoot the ball good. Like, so I think I don't know. I just really like that frame, how you put that.
Yeah, to kind of keep elaborating on that too, the only reason everyone doesn't treat making money online like that is because it's such a new way of life. It's such a new way of life. And they're like, dude, college has been 4 years forever, right? Like, you'll have someone who's like college educated, took out a ton of debt to go ahead and do it. Nothing wrong with that, but actually probably something wrong with the debt part, right? But nothing wrong with going to college, right? Like went to private school or whatever, right? And then expects like making money online to work in like 2 months. Like, dude, you went to college for 4 years. You have a grad degree, right? Let's be a little patient here, man. Let's be a little patient with this stuff, right? And think, but lack of positive reinforcement around that, I completely do get as well. But you can go find people, right? There's people starving. If you're whoever is listening to this, right? There's someone with your demographics that or similar hobbies, whatever. I mean demographics in terms like hobbies, whatever, something like that, right? That would love for someone to talk to about this stuff all day, but they're also insecure about going out and finding you. So you have to take it into your own hands.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. I ask a lot of guests this, but I think you're probably one of the most qualified. If you had to boil down what makes people successful with this stuff to one thing, not a bunch of stuff, you have to say one thing that you find that makes people the most successful, what do you think it would be?
Who you talk to on a day-to-day basis.
So you're like your surroundings, who you surround yourself with.
100%. Yep, 100%. Me when I got started selling Amazon back in the day, it went from 0% of my conversations being around selling Amazon and 100% of them being on everything else in life. And I've made more money the way that scale has shifted of and it doesn't have to be about Amazon. It's could be about working out or could be content you consume, similar frame with that. But yeah, it is entirely who you talk to on a day-to-day basis, I would say.
Yeah, because I guess if you're surrounded by people who are just forward on this stuff, it doesn't really matter what inefficiencies or things you have wrong with you. You're gonna just turn into those people around you and start. Yeah, they're gonna lift you up. So
that's kind of like the way I think about it, right? And that for example, like Pete back in the day, like Pete and like Max and those guys, like they met and the other Max, right? And they just clicked immediately, right? Now they did get lucky to find each other so early, but they're all very similar and they like the same jokes and they like the same memes. And because it was fun to do it, they did it more. And because they did it more, they made more money, which made it more fun, which made them do more. It's just like a flywheel, basically, with that. Yeah. So yeah, that is the thing that the way I think about it, because everything else gets figured out. Right. In regards to anything. And that if you put a fat guy and he's friends with a bunch of guys that are super jacked, it's unreasonable that he wouldn't make progress in that respect if he wanted to,
Yep, and the exact opposite is true as well. You're talking about your 5 IRL friends. Like if you surround yourself with, maybe not even negative people, but just standard, a lot of times that can bring you down if you're trying to be above standard. So I think that's a good lesson for people to learn as well. Like it can work out in the opposite way, probably worse than it works out in the positive way if you surround yourself with bad people all the time.
Yeah, and the longer it happens, the more that becomes clear too, right? You know what I'm saying on that? And that and once again, I sometimes sound like a broken record saying this, but dude, it took a lot of Gary Vee content for me to start, right? Bro, a lot. You know what I'm saying? It took a lot. And so it's the kind of thing where I just really, really, really believe in that. And the best part of that is we all gain nothing from telling people that. Yep. We don't make any money from that, right? There's no incentives to say that, right? It's just I just think it's good advice, basically, because it made such a big difference for me.
Your abundance with stuff is also very helpful. You have a very abundant mentality. I remember when you brought me on the pod, you gave me some words of advice after, and I was just why would he tell me that? That literally benefits him negatively, not even positively, but it benefited me positively, and things have worked out even better for you. So I just find that interesting that you just always, there's so much out there. I don't really care about what anybody does. I'm just focused on me, and I'm going to just keep being more successful. I think that's really tough. Because even I struggle to see how you even come to that conclusion, but it just continues to work out for you year after year. And it's probably going to continue in the future.
Yeah, and what I like about it though is I consider that the most selfish mindset in the whole world. And they're like, dude, like you know what I mean? I want to get mine, right? But like I think like I've learned that like, you know, putting out stuff that I think can benefit other people heavily benefits me too, right? And everything's like it's incentives are aligned. And
yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And on the topic too, right? And we're like 48 minutes in here, and this is like the big thing that it, like for most people listening to this will be Amazon people, right? You might not do Amazon forever, and that's fine, right? But you need to equip yourself, right, with the best team you can to serve you better in future opportunities as well, right? And you're not going to find that in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, most likely. And I can guarantee you. Now, ironically, John and I did meet very close to Lancaster.
Yeah.
But you got the idea. We met on IG, right? And then we hung out in person, right? And things. So like, you just need to equip yourself well for future opportunities too. And I just don't see how the two choices of having a great reputation online and having no presence online, I just don't see how the first guy doesn't make a lot more money over time, right? Life is long. You know what I mean? And everything. And you want to equip yourself well. And that like, dude, like talking on the TikTok stuff, right? So John's been posting on IG for like 6 years now, right? He could post a story right now and say, hey, I'm looking to get into eBay. What resources do you guys use? And he would get bombarded by the best free resources from people who have done it. So some people have made those resources, some people haven't. People just start flocking you for free when you give them a chance to and everything, right? And I just know that, and I can't unsee that because I was, you know, someone who was brand new who posted the day I got my first Amazon sales. Almost everyone listening to this had a better second month of Amazon than I did. I had like $1,800 in sales, I think, my second month, right? Almost everyone listening to this did better than that, right? And it's you know, but you stick with it for a while and you get a lot better, you know. And that was selling books. My second month of OA was a lot better, but like it always, you know, a better vehicle, you know. And on the topic of vehicle too, right? Your vehicle grows over time. No private label guy started out in private label or hit big on his first one. A lot of people have started in private label, but they didn't hit it big immediately, right? Most OA sellers started with RA, right? And we're spoiled these days that you could start with OA. But back in the day, as John and I, as the resident geezers right here, you know, we just started selling books, man. There were no ungates and shit back in the day, right? But no one started out like, you shouldn't go in and do retail arbitrage and like automatically assume, damn, bro, I got to do that for the next 30 years. No, you're going to grow. You're going to get better. You're going to see more opportunity. You're going to meet new people, right? And it's important to have that long-term mindset around that. It's a very, very good thing to do, I'd say.
I know you're coming close to your hard time come up. So, John, but you got any final questions for us here? Or can you push another 5 minutes? How much time you got?
Hit me. No, I got this through.
We'll go 4 o'clock on the dot.
Oh, yeah, for sure. No, that's totally cool. Yeah.
Okay, good.
So
good.
where do you get? So you talked a lot about getting motivation and listening to positive stuff. Who do you listen to outside the space?
Ooh, yeah. So like any of the big business channels, typically I'll check out. That's where I get like a lot of like the title ideas and stuff for my videos. But it's more so for like, you know, learning new things and everything. But all the big business guys, Hormozy, probably the main one, in respect to like formal business content too. And then I keep a pulse from like a content perspective. I keep a pulse on like all the big people and like other types, like talking about other types of making money online, basically, and everything too. And then like all types of like, I'll watch a ton of Amazon content too, as well, and everything, which I think is, and that's been like a consistent thing for like 6 years, basically, which is awesome. And then moving to Miami has been really good for that too. And that like, you know, living in Pennsylvania was cool, but like living in Miami, you see it. You know what I mean? You see people walk around. It's the same thing with going to Miami Sellers Conference for the first time, like seeing these huge sellers walk around, like, you know, seeing like a huge seller like walk out of the bathroom is like, damn, like that guy did 100 grand a month and I'm sitting here doing 50. You think I can't do that? Right? You think I can't? Of course I can. You know what I mean? And I think so. Yeah, moving to Miami helped out a lot with that. And then like living in Pennsylvania was a lot more of like watching stuff. Miami, you like get to see it firsthand a lot more and everything. And I think too, like to be completely frank, living in Miami has taught me a ton of what not to do because of how terribly people live here. And I think from like an expenses perspective and everything too, and that like it, you know, and everything, and that like, it's mainly just like all the big YouTube business guys, I would say primarily. A book here and there, more video content these days. Dopamine receptors a little fried, which isn't even good to say, but it's just true based on.
That's I'm the same, dude. I can't read a book. It doesn't matter what it is. I struggle so bad.
Yeah, yeah. unfortunately and honestly, it's just true in that capacity. Yeah.
Well, what's the future? Like, what is your? I know you've got boxing, which is like fairly new, so I'm sure you
Yeah,
have some pretty
definitely.
big goals with that. But how do you have any other things in the future of like where you're going to go from here, or do you think you're just going to be in the Amazon space forever?
Yeah. So, dude, I love the Amazon stuff. Like I literally hadn't done a podcast that wasn't my own in like a year, and I did one with Corey last week, and it was like so fun and everything. So, I have no idea, but I like, or at least think I'm good enough at like the content side of things that like that's going to serve well for future opportunities too, as well. And I have no idea what that'll look like and everything, but I love the situation right now. I'm just going to keep rocking with it basically. So no real long term plans outside of just like the personal brand will keep going, obviously, but I have no idea in terms of the future and everything. Just keeping going with what I got going on right now, pretty much.
What do you think is the most effective way to get? Well, let's let's not talk about the networking thing. I'm talking about like you're garnering an audience, maybe you're pushing a product or whatever. What's the most effective singular thing? Because I know you do tons of YouTube live streams, you do IG, you do IG stories. What do you think's the most on a from a content creator's perspective? Like, what's the biggest needle mover?
Yeah, so once you have authority in something, it's for sure YouTube due to the average time of impression, right? It's like significantly higher, right? And everything. And then the way to actually think about it is, regardless of the medium, think of every problem and part of the process there is and reverse engineer it and deliver it in the quickest and most concise way possible. Basically with that. And then like, dude, if I had my choice of what to talk about only all day, it would strictly just be like how to do content. Basically. That's like, I love doing the stuff where it gets talked about a lot and everything, but just haven't really done too much of it yet and everything. So maybe that'll become a little bit more part of my brand down the line too and everything, but not sure. Yeah.
I can see that for sure. That's also an awesome offer. I know the guys. We're having Grant Landon on later this week.
Oh, dude, exactly. He'll come to Miami every 3 months. We'll hang out. Yeah, like, dude, that's the best part of it, right? Is like, say Drew moved to Miami, right? Like, he would have someone lined up for dinner every night. People
And a
come.
sunburn.
It's like, it's beautiful, right? And then like we go to Miami SARS cons, we go to Las Vegas for ASD, and it's like you have these built-in relationships, you have built-in goodwill that more human beings should give themselves a chance to get. Period. In my opinion,
What else, John? Got about 3 minutes.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. So where would you suggest people start? I feel like if I remember back your journey, it seemed like you mastered one social media platform at a time. It seemed like it was Instagram, then you went to Twitter, then you started YouTube. Do you suggest people focus on one? Or what would you suggest? Someone just starting on Amazon now, what do you suggest them to do the first 30 days?
Yeah, hang out where you consume. Produce where you consume. You're not teaching people stuff. You're documenting what you're doing. Classic Gary Vee. Same advice bro was giving out in 2009. Look up the book, crush it. It's 120 pages. You can read it in a sitting. I see it right over there. I'll read it once per year. Your mind will be completely blown that it was written in 2009. Right. But yeah, I don't think really anyone should set out to be a content creator. I didn't. You guys probably didn't either. Everyone should set out to build some quality relationships online. Right. And the way you do that is shockingly low effort. You authentically share who you are and you do it consistently over time. Right. And you learn, you innovate. Okay, this post, a picture of a box gets less likes than a selfie video. Therefore, I'll do more selfie videos. Algorithms are good. Your stuff starts getting pushed more, and human beings are opportunities, and don't just rely on the people that are in your small town.
Yep. Any parting words for the guests?
Yep.
This whole thing's been parting words, but you got any more?
Yeah, that's what I like though. Is like stuff like this is awesome. I haven't done it in a while and everything, but yeah, basically like my whole kind of thesis with this stuff is it's not Amazon centric, but it's like don't rely on the people that are currently in your life, or unless it's a great situation, which you wouldn't be listening to a podcast if you had everything you wanted, most likely, right? And everything, and then find people on the internet, work with them. Basically, none of that costs any money. Amazon centric stuff, stick with it for a while, do it every day, do it with people that are also doing it, who have what you want or want what you want, and over time, the more you do it, you're gonna get better, you're gonna learn, you're gonna innovate, you're gonna see new opportunities. Right. And that doesn't exist when you're a newer seller. You kind of just got to like trust the talking heads, which happens to be us right now, but it's a lot of other people too. And if you just kind of got to trust this like a legit way to do things, and that, do it for yourself, get a little feedback, get a little momentum, do it long enough to get momentum. Right. And good things will happen.
Sweet. Yep. Where can everyone find you?
Cool. Yeah. So Flips4Miles on all pages, on all platforms. Do a lot of like mainly YouTube in terms of like where the best stuff will be. And then selleramp.com for product research, boxem.com for listing, shipping, and analytics coming soon here as well. So yeah, really, really appreciate y'all. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for being here, guys. Go follow Miles, like, subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Peace.
Peace.